Thanks, Carson. A round of applause for Carson Drake, everybody. Brought us all together here on the island. I'm Jeremy Warren. I'm GrayMatter's brand manager, and I'm super psyched to be back in Bay, as I know, and I've already heard from a lot of you that you're so glad to be back. Just by a show of hands, who has already met somebody that they didn't know in their industry? I have. Who has met somebody for the first time in their own company here on the island? There's a couple of examples of this. I think that's amazing. Yeah, I've seen a bunch of hands in the back. So somebody that you work with and just haven't seen in person yet, maybe only have seen virtually, and you're meeting here at Bay. So it's just awesome. So I want to introduce our panelists today because everybody up here is somebody that GrayMatter works with, and you actually sat right in the order that I have in my notes here. So on my left, my far left here is Jerry Baum. He's Director of IT Infrastructure at Zekelman Industries, a leading steel and pipe manufacturer. And you can elaborate that on that later if you want to. That's just my brief intro on that. So, and then Larry Sedman here from Nordson. He's Chief Technologist for R&D at Nordson Corporation. They're a global manufacturer of sealant coating and adhesive dispensing systems. Did I get that right, Larry? Is that right? Cool. And then Jeff Bernowski here, right to my left. He's manager of City of Akron, Ohio Water Supply Bureau. Produces clean drinking water for more than 300,000 customers. That's in the ballpark. That's what's on the website anyway. So we want to talk today about a few of the priorities that these guys have in front of them, a few of the solutions that they're working on with GrayMatter. When you go through today's workshops, you're going to be hearing from them and from our other speakers, because the theme of this year at GrayMatter.Live is industrial breakthroughs, and we really want to focus on the things that are working and the things that folks in the industry are excited about, and hear from customers directly. So that's going to take us to a couple of our first questions. So Jeff, I'm going to pick on you first. So Jeff, at Akron, you guys are doing so many different things to innovate, to use data in different ways, to really push the envelope. We were talking about it around the table, last night. What's the top priority for you, for the next 3 to 6 months in what you're doing to innovate at Akron?
Right. Well, one of the biggest issues we have at Akron right now is financial. Okay. With inflation costs being completely out of control, chemical costs are a huge part of our budget, almost 50% of our water plant budget, which is up significantly where it was just 3 years ago. It's all about finding ways to, one, generate more revenue, or two, reduce costs. The typical way we generate revenue is straight going to the customer, asking for rate increases. But in this day and age, it's almost politically unacceptable to raise rates, especially in a climate where we're at in Akron, in that our growth is down significantly, our plant production is down significantly. We hit a 70-year low with regards to plant production, so we're losing customers, we're losing a lot of the manufacturing base. So it's really important to us to find ways to continue to operate under all these conditions. So really focusing on the technologies that are out there that can reduce costs is one of the biggest strategies we have right now at Akron.
Great. Larry, same question. What's the top priority for you, looking at the next 6 months, 12 months?
So struggling to look at 6 months, 2 weeks. We've been working with GrayMatter and WindGrid for a bit over a year now out in the lab environment. Things are working well. Keep closer, keep going.
Separate to me. You go here, just in case it's me.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
And anyway, we have our first real customer field trial coming up in 2 weeks. So kind of laser-like focus on making sure don't expect any problems, but at least in the real world gets to. So
yeah.
Laser-like focus, and it is over in Germany, so that will introduce its own set of challenges.
For sure. Jerry, top priority.
Top priority right now for me, it's strange from an infrastructure standpoint to be talking about OT security, because I came up in the IT world, and looking at OT and how OT security affects our business. I mean, we're really focused on automation right now. It's a steel tube manufacturer that has been in business for 150 years now. I mean, you think of the guy, manual labor is the heart that's not the case anymore. I mean, as Jeff was talking about, costs are going up, and a lot of our costs, 50% of their cost is chemicals. Ours is trucking and labor. So, how do you get those labor costs down? How do you get those transportation costs down? And all of that points to automation. And so those are really the things that we're focused on to drive our business forward.
Absolutely. So, Jeff, we'll come back to you for the next question. Since you were talking about chemicals, I know another major cost for you guys is energy, and that just happens to connect with something that you're working on with GrayMatter. Could you tell folks a little bit about that? Give them a preview of kind of what they're going to hear when we break out into the workshops about how you're trying to cut down on those big energy costs that Akron has.
Yeah, so Akron has a wonderful relationship with GrayMatter. And I do have to mention that is so important, especially for us in the industry we're in, is that it's a very conservative industry. It's one where you can't take chances with drinking water. And so, finding partners like GrayMatter, we have a great partnership with ProTech, great partnership with AECOM, where we try new technologies that have not only been established to some degree in water, but in other industries as well, because that then gives you the confidence to be somewhat cutting edge and not necessarily bleeding edge. So one of the most recent projects that we're talking about here is with regards to twin thread and the way in which we operate our pumps. At our water treatment plant, 85% of our energy costs are associated with high service pumping operations. So the other 15% is everything else, every outlet in the building, all right, every light in the building, but 85%, which goes to the tune of about $1.2 to $1.3 million a year, is associated with high service pump operation. And so we utilize the twin thread product for the first time, and we foresee a 7 to 10% savings in utilizing the recommendations and the direction that software gives us to determine which pumps to use and at which rate we should use them at. So really, really excited. We'll be talking about it this afternoon a little more. But yeah, it's been a great opportunity to kind of cost savings that we've talked about.
Yeah, it's an exciting project. It's been cool just to get to talk with you about how it's launching and like how the operators are getting into it now to look at those recommendations. So that'll be part of the analytics track, which is 1 of 4, and I'll remind everybody about this at the end, but that's where you'll be able to catch Jeff's presentation. So Larry, same question. What's something that you're working on with GrayMatter that you'll be talking about today? I think also in the analytics track, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So as I said, we're going forward with this first customer in a couple weeks, and all about improving their ability to use condition-based maintenance so that they can guarantee uptime from our equipment. Reduce adhesive utilization, same problem with the chemicals and cost of chemicals. And adhesives especially is an area where operators think more is better, and that's not always the case. So having some analytics on it, making sure that they're using what they should be using it, still producing a great product.
Was there a key problem that you guys have kind of focused in on to try to solve?
Actually, most of the challenges have been in the cybersecurity area. Glue production in Germany is considered critical infrastructure, so there's a great deal of focus. As is water here, obviously.
Yeah.
So great to know that you're already in one of those critical industries.
Yeah, I think we all learned at the beginning of the pandemic that pretty much everybody in this room is in one of those 16 critical infrastructure categories, and we were reminded of that, and we need the resources to secure it and to improve it. So, Jerry, what are you working on with GrayMatter? Larry alluded to it there with cybersecurity.
Yeah, it is absolutely around cybersecurity. I mean, Scott Christensen and I laughed. We kind of have a bond because I think we were the first customer that he saw when he came on at GrayMatter, and he thought, we're based out of Sharon, Pennsylvania, and we're the original Quaker Steak and Lube, which is, they took an old gas station, a Quaker Steak gas station. I said, Scott, come on, we're going to go to the gas station and have lunch. And he says since he's been working on me for about 3 years now from a cybersecurity perspective, and so we're really just getting ready to launch this initiative to go into our plants and really rely on GrayMatter's expertise on the operational side to talk that language and talk that culture to our operations groups to not only, I don't want to say help us sell it because the buy-in is there from the business, but make sure that we're translating properly what we're trying to do and how we're trying to secure the business to their benefit.
Right, and that'll be part of the cybersecurity track we'll be able to hear with Jerry. And I think when we were talking before, Jerry, what's really valuable is that everybody's in a different stage with cyber, with securing their systems. And so I think your story is one of it's taken some work to get there. It started with a conversation. It happened to be with Scott maybe 3 years ago or so, and then there was some sort of triggering events along the way that made leadership, management, sort of see the light and see what they needed to do.
We had a very unique. I don't even want to say it's unique because it's probably not, Jeremy, in that we are Zekelman Industries is more of a parent company, and we have anywhere from 5 to 6, depending on how it's split out, different business divisions with us, all under autonomous leadership. And then that autonomous leadership will give autonomous leadership to each of their plants. So we didn't have that proverbial one throat to choke. I mean, we didn't have one person we needed to convince. We had 20 people we needed to convince that this cybersecurity was important to them. And so fortunately and because of nothing we did or a business decision, the COO was appointed to oversee everything here about a year ago, and he had been with the company for about 25 years, so it was a very well-seasoned person, and someone that knew that through cybersecurity we can help reach those goals, and it's understanding the business's goals. Everything is around quality, customer service, and safety. I mean, that is preached all the time, and so how do we take cybersecurity and tie it to that? And through making that case to the COO, we were able to get his buy-in. And from there, he's able to go to his people and say, look, I know you don't have the people for this, I know you don't have the time for this, but this is important to our business and this is why. And so having him on our team really helped drive the effort.
That's awesome. And what I hope people take away from Jerry's story and the others as well is just that there's somebody in this room who is at that beginning point where you were like 3 or 4 years ago. There's probably somebody who's a year or two ahead here, and it looks really familiar too. But take a piece of that journey and like what Jerry has learned along the way, either from a presentation or Bullet's side during today's event, and kind of like get that more, that next level detail on how we talked to leadership, on how we got buy-in, on how he started to do the little things to really like spread the word about cybersecurity and best practices. So just from an audience standpoint, that's where I really see there's a ton of value here up on this stage. So speaking of best practices, Jeff, you're a leader, you're a manager, you're in a role where you're directing operators and looking at what they do day to day. What's something that you have found at Akron Water that is a great best practice or a way that you've really been able to make strides to your job?
Yeah, well, infrastructure is a key issue that we have at Akron. The age of our infrastructure. Just yesterday, dealing with a water main from 1886. All right, we have
made of terracotta.
But so infrastructure failure is going to happen. Okay, not only out in water distribution mains, but at the water plant itself. We have a dam that's well over 100 years old, and a plant that's over 100 years old, with a lot of the original still in service. So what's important to us is that we need to put in as much monitoring and sensoring that we can so that we can almost predict it to some degree or see it happen before it actually happens. And so really investing in a lot of that monitoring, really investing in the staff to react to that, having SOPs in place when certain pressure sensors go down, having a disruption of service SOPs in place, and doing this as much as we can with the technology to try and direct staff on how to react to these certain situations. So disaster management, emergency management is so important, especially with the age of infrastructure, not only at Akron, but across the country and in cities similar to Akron's age.
I live in Pittsburgh, so I know. Come cold season, the water main breaks and everything else. And as a former newspaper reporter, just covering how much strain those systems are under. And I think that's a huge theme that my 4 years at GrayMatter, I'm always seeing it is that a lot of organizations, water included, of course, have to work with aging infrastructure, with equipment that they have, and a lot of times it's about getting more data out of it and not necessarily making a huge infrastructure upgrade. And if you can avoid that, then that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a massive water meter project that we're about to embark on, which we intend to integrate with our SCADA, our IFIX system. But our water loss is so significant. It's over 35% right now. So we literally lose 35% of the water that we pump, so it doesn't go through a meter for whatever reason. So there's a lot of leaks out in the system. There's a lot of things that we can do when we start getting like real-time measurements on customers' water meters, and then compare that to other sensors in the system that may be associated with a pump that's serving that area or a tank that's serving that area. You see these differentiations, and you can kind of tune into exactly where you may have these problems. So we're really excited about that coming forward.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a previous story that I worked with you on, just the time to empty metric, which isn't even part of today's presentation so much, but I just think it's fascinating that you're starting to get that real-time recognition of what's really going on.
Right. Yeah, that is an excellent example where we're just planning for the emergency. So often we'll have a failure, and we only have a single water plant serving this 300,000 customer base. And when that plant goes down for whatever reason it might be, all right, there's a certain amount of time you have until you start seeing depressurization of the system. So through the iFix integration that we have in place, we are now able to at least give operators and staff a time that says, hey, you have 7 hours before the customer sees it. You're down to 6.5 hours. You're down to 6. So it gives us an idea of just how big of a reaction we need to make on the operating side, which is a great thing to have, because in the past it was simply, well, we think it might be 8 hours. We think it may be 10. But when you have a real fixed number, you can really put a good procedure in place to react to the situation.
Yeah, and when a higher up wants to know kind of like what's the critical juncture here, how quickly do we need to issue, a notice or whatever it is, and you can actually tell them that information now with that, iFix solution. I think that's amazing because it marries together so many different metrics to be able to tell you that. I mean, it's the geography, it's the tank size, it's the demand, it's the time of day, all of it comes together and it's visualized. So, I don't know, it gets me psyched about it anyway, I don't know. So, Larry, what's a way that, the folks who you work with, a breakthrough for you in terms of a best practice or something that you really share with people, even, folks who are maybe new managers in the company?
Right, so our challenge is the whole voice of customer area. We know what our machine should be doing, we know what the data should look like. Engineers can stare at the data tables all day and all night, but the reality is that our customers, our equipment is a tiny piece of their life, critical. If it goes bad things happen, but most of the time, out of sight, out of mind.
Sure.
So it's learning how to use the dashboard to deliver the critical information they need and the warnings they need, and not overload them with information overload that's not important. So using cross-functional teams internally that have a lot of customer experience. And again, we don't want to necessarily, the point of the field trial is to work with the customer, but before that happens, use our internal knowledge of what customer plans look like, and make sure that we are presenting what we already know in a very concise format that's very actionable.
So that's interesting. So you actually go into the field, you have operators, you have the customer, and you're actually looking for feedback on how you're.
That's what's going to start happening in 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. That's exciting. Jerry, so what's a best practice for you, a way that you really hone in on when you're leading a team or working with a team?
Yeah, the first one that I bring up is what Larry brought up, is really data visualization. I mean, and this is more, leading a team isn't only leading the people who work for you, it's leading up. And that's really what I was talking about earlier too with the cybersecurity. You need to lead your managers as well and executives, and to do that, you need to be able to visual data. You need to be a marketer. I mean, you need to come up with slogans like you have on your t-shirt and hit them quick and hit them hard with something that they're going to understand. Because they don't have time to go through 15 reams of data looking for the answer. You need to present the answer concisely and quickly in a way that they understand. And so it's thinking like that and making sure that you're able to visualize that data. That's a big thing. For my reasons and my team, as much as most of us as technologists hate it, it's documentation. Because that way you make sure that everyone is on the same page. You don't have those questions when a situation comes up. You go to and I tell my team, they ask us to be flexible, but you be flexible by having the standard and adapting the standard. If you don't have that standard, you're not flexible. You're going to blow right over when the breeze hits. And so having that documentation and getting the buy-in from executive management on that as well. Making sure you have all the roles defined, especially going back to the OT cybersecurity. Who's responsible for each aspect of it? Where is IT going to take it? Where are the local plants going to take it? And making sure that all of that is documented and the buy-in is there. So those are two things that I really focus on that I've found to help us be successful.
Right, exactly, and that's something that you'll definitely hear Scott talking about in the cyber track. Is just identifying a plan, having a plan of action, when there is an issue, like who are the right people to call at the right time and when. So, and documenting that, as you said, is absolutely critical. And yeah, this year, for the people who can't see, it says empowering citizen data scientists. And yeah, it is a slogan, but it's a way to just like solidify that. And the idea I think behind this one is just that anybody in a company can be using data, in a new way, in a powerful way, helping make decisions better. So that's kind of the citizen part, is that you don't have to be an actual data scientist to make this stuff work, which is great, because I think a lot of organizations are in vastly short supply of data scientists. You might have them, but that's where GrayMatter and others can come in to kind of assist. Jeff, back to you on this next one. So we talked about this one a little bit last night, but what's something that's really keeping you up at night that's you're concerned about all the time in your position?
It's the infrastructure failure and having the monitoring in place. But to that point is the reception of this technology that we implement from the staff. All right, you mentioned like everybody can be a data scientist, and there's a lot of truth to that. When you start implementing these treatment recommendations, be it on the pumping side with QuinFred, and we have some chemical recommendations that direct operators now to put certain chemicals in certain doses. You turn the position that used to be an art, truly an art. A lot of the 30+ year staff were artists when they operated these treatment plants. They just knew what to do. They didn't quite know why they were doing it. It was experience, it was years. This is how I reacted the last time, so I'm going to do it again. It worked. But now there's science in place that directs them to react accordingly, which produces the best water quality for the lowest cost, which is a great thing for us. But to the staff, they see it as, well, what's my job? Who am I now? And that's where we're now having to work really hard to teach folks that you don't necessarily need to dial in the dose. You don't necessarily need to decide what speed the pump needs to run on. But what you do need to know is how to react when these things fail. What you do need to know is you need to work with a lot of the data scientists that we have, a lot of the consultants and such that we have. Jeff Van Atten's a big part of leading this group out at the water plant, working with Jeff to try and improve even further some of these tools that have been given to us to improve operations. So, the reception of the staff is really, really important in making sure that you don't run into an apathy situation to say, well, let's just let the computers run this place. That's not what we want. It's not what we want. They still need to be an integral part of that operation. So just bringing that into, you know, an acceptance by the staff. It's a lot of work for management to try to communicate that down.
And that's literally, it's a great point, Jeff, and that's something that in every track you should be thinking about, is how to get people on board with whatever, you know, if you want to call it digital transformation initiative, whatever it is, you know, be thinking about that, because that a lot of times is going to be an enormous challenge, as much as or more than the technology actually there. So, you know, be thinking about questions in the workshops about that topic, and, you know, ask the presenters about it, whether it's one of the, you know, the folks up here or, you know, one of the folks from GrayMatter. Either way, it's something to be thinking about. So Larry, you know, same question. What's something that kind of keeps you up, bugs you?
Yeah, I think our biggest challenge is the nature of digital as an ecosystem. We're used to working with the packaging machine manufacturer, the customer, and ourselves, but our relationship with the packaging machine supplier was, this is where it fits, and we'll give you 24 volts when we're ready to go. And now they're asking for all this data, and often asking for data they don't know what to do with, so we need to help them interpret it. And now, in addition to those three, there's whichever machine sitting beside us that needs to know what we're doing. It used to go through the master PLC, and now may be distributed. There may be a cybersecurity vendor telling the plant how to meet those standards. There's GrayMatter helping us do better analytics. So much more complicated in terms of the number of human communications, not just digital, but even more important than understanding how all the players fit into making the operation work well.
Right, yeah, and every time you get those questions, you're strengthening that level of communication and building that rapport, whether it's from a customer or, you know, from an operator. You know, so there's value in having those answers for them. Jerry, same question.
What's keeping me up at night right now, and it's been alluded to a couple of times up here, and it's really a term from what we've been talking about, but it's keeping and retaining and getting staff. It's people. And, you know, I talked earlier about automation and how that's really the future, but you still need people, and right now especially you need people. And, you know, Carson talked about how the pandemic changed that, you know, it's been 2 years of something that we have never experienced, and we've found not only with our existing staff, but people that we're looking to bring into Zekelman Industries, the way that they view employment in itself has changed. And it's no longer about, you know, putting in the time, getting your money, and you know, doing it because that's what you do. They're looking for a purpose. And at this point, you really need to focus on what is the culture of your company, and how can you help bring fulfillment to the people who work for you, or the people that you're hoping to get into the door. You know, there are cases that we've put job descriptions out, and we're just not hearing back from anybody because we aren't advertising our culture, we're advertising the position. We're a manufacturing company, so, you know, work from home isn't part of our culture, and that's knocking out, you know, 90% of people who might even be interested in why they would come to Zekelman to work. So we need to sell the other aspects of what makes us a great company. And so that's what's keeping, you know, how do we change that mindset and let people know that it's a good place to work, so we have those talented people that we can rely on to get the job done.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's the story of so many here, you know, at Twin Bay, is that, you know, work from home, not an option. So,
right. So
sell the culture and make people, you know, understand, you know, why they're coming into work every day at the job that they're doing. That's a great point. So, so I want to thank our panelists here. Guys, thanks so much. A round of applause for everybody. They're doing hard things. They're coming up here and talking about it. It takes a lot. I think you guys know, everybody's, you know, done a presentation or two. So I really appreciate you guys, you know, making the time and the effort to come here and not only talk to the crew here today as a big group, which is why we wanted everybody to come out to the boathouse, but to also share your stories in some of these workshop sessions today. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. So I'm going to just go through a few logistical things and reminders about the workshops. If anybody has a burning question for one of our presenters, go ahead and shoot your hand up, and I can catch you right before we get out of here. But if you checked in yesterday and you talked to me or to Mandy, who is helping out at registration, everybody has what team they're with on the bottom of their badge. So go ahead and just, if you haven't already, take a quick glance at it. There should be one of 3 colors there. It should either say white, blue, or gray. So the white and blue teams are water folks, the gray team is manufacturing. So all day today and for the last session tomorrow morning, you're going to be with people in your cohort, in your industry, which we think is a really powerful way to have a detailed discussion, in each of our 4 tracks about what's going on in your particular industry. So that's why we set it up today. That way, this year, it's a little bit different than the way we've had sessions in the past years. So everybody's going to go through all 4 of the tracks that we've talked about today. So if you were at the tech show, and I think everybody here was, with maybe one exception, and you can come and ask me, the analytics, advanced industrial analytics, and the cybersecurity tracks, or where the tech show was, that room has been divided into 3 rooms. So you can find the analytics track in the first one, and then you can find the cyber track. And then down at the end is where we have our refreshments all day long. That's where you can get coffee. If you got it this morning, it's the same spot there. And that's also where our partners are located. So I really encourage you that throughout the day, we've built in breaks into the day, into the sessions. If you pop out for water or soda or for coffee, talk with the vendor folks who are in there, or if you see one of our presenters from GrayMatter, or really anybody, have a conversation, take a break, and enjoy kind of the refreshments there. So we'll be getting started this morning at 9:30. The other 2 tracks are in the main building, like where you were at the check-in desk when you came into the hotel. Just to the left there, if you go down the hallway, the first 2 rooms that you come to after that set of elevators on your left, and there'll be signage, for all of these. You'll find the Brilliant Operations track, and you'll also see the Automation and Controls track. So those are the 4 locations. So I'll just go over that again really quickly. Analytics and cyber are over where the tech show was, and you've got the break room down at the end with refreshments, and then just to the left of the check-in hotel main area is where you can find the Brilliant Operations and the Automation and Controls. And so everybody should have a program. We'll put out some extras back at the resort just in case. It's also available on our website. But if you unfold it, as I see someone is doing right here in the front row, thank you so much. Just to hold that up just to everybody. Yeah, you can unfold the whole thing if you haven't done this, and it shows you a really easy graphical representation of how your day is going to go. So just look at your color and look at the track and the time, and you will be good to go. And the signage is there, and I think that's all the reminders. Gary, is that everything we needed to remind about? Awesome. Yes, exactly. Yeah, have those questions ready. Be ready to challenge each other. It's workshop style. It's intended to be collaborative. So definitely, take the opportunity to collaborate, because I think, as we've all seen, don't know when you're going to have the opportunity to be together in person. So let's make the best use of it. Let's have a great GrayMatter.Live event, and I'm excited. So another round of applause for our presenters and for Carson. Thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you back at the resort.